believe we have a quorum, Susan.
Okay. Well, we'll get started then. I'll call the meeting to order and welcome everybody. Happy to see you. I'm sorry if we have a little problems signing in this time, but it looks like we're successful now. Let's start with some introductions. If we could have commissioners introduce themselves first, and then we'll move on to other participants and members of the public. So my name is Tony Barrick. I'm co-chair of the commission. And let's see, let me turn it over to you, Johanna. I see you next on the screen.
Thank you, Tony. My name is Johanna Rasmussen, and I'm a commissioner.
Susan Swope, Commissioner.
Melissa Wilson, Commissioner.
Sophic Nori, Commissioner.
Roxana Enriquez, Commissioner.
Austin Willis, Commissioner.
Karen
Victor
Huber-Lecce,
Lecce.
Commissioner.
Victor Lecce, III, Commissioner.
Okay. Let's see, do we have Paul with us? Let's see, Roxana, you're there. And Sophic. Okay, well, we have a quorum. I'm happy to report. So may we have those of you attending, who are not commissioners, introduce yourselves. Let's see, Ron, I see you on the screen next. Do you want to start?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Ron Reyes. I'm the managing attorney with the Private Defender Program Juvenile Office. Sorry, I'm driving, so I have my camera off.
Hello, everyone. Aurora Pena, Supervising Mental Health Clinician for BHRS at the YSC.
Johan Clark, Superintendent of Institution Probation.
Hi, everyone. John Fong, Director with Children and Family Services.
Amanda Nori, Youth Commission Liaison.
Susan Jakubowski, Juvenile Court Judge.
Hi, I'm Tracy Rogers Triba, the new Manager of Facilitation Services at the PCRC, Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center.
Well, welcome. We're happy to have you with us for the first time.
Thank you.
I'm Kate Huster, the San Mateo County Director for Fresh Lifelines for Youth.
Would anybody else like to introduce themselves?
Hey, this is Clara Jekyll. I'm a member of the public. I'll identify myself as a member of the Redwood City Police Advisory Committee, but I'm not here to represent or speak for a committee. I'm just here to listen and learn.
Well, welcome. We're happy to have you.
I'm Alexis Eskenazi. I'm looking to apply to be a youth commissioner.
Hello.
Hi, Tony. This is Chelsea Bonini. I'm just here as a liaison from the Commission on Disabilities for the county.
Hi, Chelsea. Anybody else like to introduce themselves?
Hi. Hello, this is Melanie Stoffer with Probation. Sorry about that. I was in a difficult time logging in. And I just wanted to let the group know that once I report out on my information, I'll be leaving early tonight. So thank you.
Okay. Would you like to report out earlier than in the agenda, Melanie?
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Tony, for asking. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take a look at the agenda. Do I have any changes? Okay, then we'll approve the agenda as distributed. And hopefully every commissioner's had a chance to look at the minutes. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes? Okay.
Just one on page 4, D at the top. The nudges are sent to students who are truant, not to all students. It sounds like it's being sent to all the students.
Okay. Students of what?
Truant students.
Truant. Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else? All right, we'll approve the minutes with the correction to page 4 then. Let's see, Tracy, is Melissa with us yet?
I don't see her. I believe she will be joining us shortly.
All right, we're a little bit early for the speakers, so we'll move to the updates first, and then we'll come back to our speaker in a few minutes. So could we have the court update first?
Sure. Good evening. Not really too much to update from the courts. We continue to slowly open up, and more people seem to be coming in and appearing in person, but we still are fine having youth and their families appear via Zoom unless we feel it's necessary for them to be in the courthouse. And if it is, we let them know that. I think going forward, as things open up more, we may make some more changes, but right now we're seeing how everything's going. And I know we do for certain contested hearings and trials prefer, unless there's agreement otherwise, to have people come in personally. But overall, we're just trying to be flexible as the situation continues to develop. And other than that, we're attending a lot of different meetings as we sort of move forward with the changes in the DJJ situation and secure track. And so all of that is slowly developing. And I attended a couple of the meetings that we had for the work groups yesterday and today. And that's really about it. That's all the information I have. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has them.
Could you tell me, you mentioned secure track. What is that?
So the changes, what the changes are going to be, obviously, as of tomorrow, DJJ will no longer be taking youth. And so they will be shifting the responsibility for youth that perhaps would have gone to DJJ to each local vicinity. So along with probation and then other providers, they're starting to have discussions about what that facility would look like, what programs would be involved. And so for the type of secure facility, that would be where youth who normally would have possibly gone to DJJ would go instead of DJJ.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's see, I see Melissa Natane has joined us, so welcome. I think we'll move on. We're a little bit early. Is that okay if we start a little bit early?
Sure. You mean for me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Well, let me just let everybody know we've invited Melissa Natane Jones to speak with us today. Melissa is the Managing Director of Initiatives and Programs for PCRC, and she has spent many years working with the youth in the Pacific Islander community, working on issues of health, education, and violence prevention. And the Pacific Island community is one that the Commission is not really too familiar with. So Melissa, we're delighted to have you here today to tell us a little bit more about their unique issues. So I turn the floor over to you.
Great. Good evening, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Melissa Natane Jones, and I'm with the Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center. And I'm just gonna share my screen for a very short presentation, and then I want to be able to answer any questions that any of you may have. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces on this call, so I'm happy to be here.
Are you able to share your screen, or do we
I
am.
Yeah. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. Great. So I have been asked by Tony to be able to share a little bit about the work that the Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center has done within the Pacific Islander community. But before that, I want to just share some information about the organization for those of you who may not be familiar. PCRC has gone through a theory of change recently and have a newly articulated mission and vision for the organization. And here's a bit of a little infographic to show you a little bit about the growth of the organization and sort of where we want to head in the future. Our vision is a world in which people advance equity, practice empathy, and understand differences. And this is where the organization really sees itself in really helping with community vibrancy. In order for us to get there, we really want to partner with community members to intentionally engage and collaborate on complex issues. I know that often when individuals hear Peninsula conflict resolution, they're like, ooh, where's the conflict at? And our organization is 35 years old. We have been serving San Mateo County since 1986. Tony actually is a former member of our board. And so the work that we do is really to help impact communities. And as I mentioned before, to really see vibrant communities. And we know that that can't happen overnight. We know that nonprofits have very bold initiatives and bold missions because we're the ones who really want to help our communities. And so we really want to see a reduction in violence, increased civic engagement. We really do believe that when individuals can advocate for themselves and feel empowered to do so, that the voice and the solution really lies within them. And of course, community resilience. Not everyone feels resilient, especially when they're underserved, marginalized. So we really want to help in collaboration with other organizations to really help have this maximum impact on our communities. In our newly articulated theory of change, we've really identified 4 areas that we believe that if PCRC is able to really work within, that we will meet this community vibrancy. And we don't suspect that we will do it overnight, but we really do believe if we can infuse schools, corrections, workplaces, and neighborhoods, that we can see this maximum effect of community vibrancy. And the way that we want to do that is to continue to build skills, transform conflict, and leverage the strengths of the community. And so again, we were asked to talk a little bit about the Pacific Islander work that we've done. And I'm just going to share a little bit of what we've done in the Pacific Islander community. And so back in 2004, PCRC was asked to partner with local law enforcement to be able to address a increasing number of violent and gang-related situations that were happening between the city of San Mateo and the city of San Bruno. And so if you are having gang violence with 2 specific cities, the cities in between also suffer. So we also had to engage the city of Burlingame and the city of Millbrae to be able to come up with some solutions. And so because the Pacific Islander community was somewhat new in gang violence in San Mateo County, they were unsure how to really approach prevention or intervention around gang violence in the Pacific Islander community. And so because we are a third-party neutral organization and we really believe in bringing people together to be able to collaborate, PCRC was the best fit in order to do so. And so bringing together an entire collaboration of different sectors, community leaders, faith leaders, as well as the community to be able to come together and really figure out what is the best way to approach the gang violence that is starting to happen. And when we saw this, it was all youth, it was all high school students in San Mateo County. The largest population of Pacific Islanders do come from the Kingdom of Tonga. So there are more Tongans than any other Pacific Islander group within San Mateo County. And so there were shootings happening at the churches, which was something that was very unusual for law enforcement. And that is because Pacific Islanders have a very strong faith. Whether you are Tongan, Samoan, Fijian, there is always some sort of spiritual or faith connection. And these young people knew that they could find the opposing gang members at their church because their families would be there. So the Tongan Interfaith Collaborative was established in 2004. And so what they did was they really went out to the community to ask the community what were the best ways to be able to engage young people. And so after many years of trying to work with the community as well as law enforcement, we had probation, we had the school districts that covered all 4 cities. We included social services, the county, mental health, anybody who we felt could really support and contribute this community that was seeing such an increase in violence. And so a few things kind of came out of that. One was the rugby team, right? So when you think about prevention or intervention, there are some that are pretty standard for gang violence. Rugby wasn't really one of them. And after families advocating that culturally rugby is the national sport of the island of Tonga, and it is for most of the Pacific Islands. A lot of the adults felt like that was something that they could really get into and encourage their young people. So why do you want to shoot and fight somebody in the street when you can go play rugby? And it may sound a little simple, but it actually worked. And so we began to see young men wanting to play rugby, which was not happening in San Mateo County. If you were involved in rugby, you had to go to San Francisco or you had to go across the bay, but there wasn't anything local. So San Mateo Police Department's POW really was significant in helping to establish a under 19 rugby team, which then led to about 60 to 70 young men from both cities of San Bruno and San Mateo to be able to play on the same team and learn all of the great skills that you learn in athletics, right? So team building, discipline, working together, being able to learn other aspects of the game so that you could be better at what you do. All of those things were really, really important to the uplifting of the community. And so everyone got behind it. And it was a very successful run for the rugby team. We also began to look at youth, the education. A lot of our young people were dropping out or not completing their education. And so we wanted to do something that was relevant and culturally relevant to the young people. For those of you who may be familiar with Pacific Islanders, the collective is so important. Community is important. The gathering of groups is really important. And so we wanted to do something on a large scale to kind of engage young people to be excited about education and what education could offer. So really the focus was on getting them all together into one place and talk about education. And we would have different people come and speak. At that time, there was a lot of Pacific Islander music artists and people in athletics playing professional NFL football, or there were doctors and people who were really in these very important roles in the community. And as many of you know, when you see someone who looks like you in some of these professions, that's motivating and inspiring. So that was a really important thing that we wanted to focus on. And the other thing was, not just education, but how can we encourage them to get into the workforce? And so the Tongan Interfaith Collaborative partnered with San Mateo Adult School to begin a program around the trades. And we worked really closely with the adult school and were able to enroll something like 42 young people who had just graduated from high school or had a GED who was interested in going to the workforce. So I say that to say that a lot of these efforts were really PCRC's approach to working with the community where the community was. And so I've listed a bunch of other different things that the organization has done in order to really work and partner with other organizations to really enhance the profile of Pacific Islanders. I want to talk a little bit about what we did in 2017. So because PCRC is really focused on violence prevention, yes, mediation is sort of the intervention to when there's conflict. But about 20 years ago, we really decided that we wanted to get in front of the conflict. How can we help prevent conflict? And so we began to run a bunch of programs that were around gang violence prevention, and creating coalitions that really brought people together to really figure out strategies that were appropriate for communities around how to prevent conflict. And so there was a lot of assumptions made by myself because I was a staff at PCRC. I've been there for 14 years around what I thought was important for the community at the time. And although we had the TIC, we had community partners that also worked for the county, all of us were making assumptions about what the community needs because one, we were from the community, we were working in the community, but when we were approaching funders, they kept saying, do you have data? Can you show us where your community really needs help? And so we didn't have any data. And so in partnership with the Office of Diversity and Equity for San Mateo County, as well as Silicon Valley Community Foundation, we were able to do a Pacific Islander needs assessment, and we called it Navigating New Spaces. This was the first Pacific Islander disaggregated needs assessment that had ever been done. And usually when Pacific Islanders are being identified, they're usually identified as AAPI or with Asians. And so we really wanted to focus on the Pacific Islander needs so that we were able to help advocate for what they needed and to really help inform service providers on how they can be most successful with the community. So the purpose was really to identify the needs of the community so that people could better serve them. And we wanted to identify two core issues that they were being challenged with here, specifically in San Mateo County. And the way that we did that was we first created a Pacific Islander Advisory Committee. So we tried to get community leaders from all sectors that were Pacific Islander and of all Pacific Islands, which is too many to count, but we definitely wanted the threshold of Tongan, Samoan, Fijian, and Hawaiian, which are the prominent Pacific Islanders here in San Mateo County. The methodology to the needs assessment was really around gathering data that was already out there and having to sift through them. And then we collected our own data, and we really focused on creating focus groups in language. So they were being facilitated in Tongan or in Samoan or in Fijian by someone who was Tongan, Samoan, or Fijian, which for us was very important to be able to remove barriers, to make them feel comfortable in order to share their truth. And we also conducted key informant interviews with Pacific Islanders who were in leadership throughout the county, who had a purview of being able to serve the community and could help inform the needs assessment. There were key findings from this needs assessment, and we found that although we were only looking for two challenges, we actually ended up with three. And we incorporated the third one because it was such an overwhelming amount of feedback throughout the surveys of the needs assessment. And so financial security, health, and education were the three things that came out in the needs assessment. Under financial security, and I'm really just pulling a few from each topic. I think Tony has the full needs assessment, and I'm happy to send it to anyone who's interested in it. Financial security, here are the key findings. We found that 1 in 5 Tongans in San Mateo County live in poverty. They are the second lowest rate of household income per capita in the county. In terms of health, Pacific Islanders die faster than any other ethnicity in San Mateo County. So we have the highest mortality rate. And that's due to chronic illness and the second point here of uninsured. So they have the highest rate than any other ethnicity of uninsured people in San Mateo County. And finally, in education, 17% of Pacific Islander adults 25 and older have not completed a high school diploma or a GED program. Which clearly makes it difficult to be able to attain employment that could even help us survive in this county. And only 16% have a bachelor's degree or higher, and that's the lowest in San Mateo County among all groups. So I didn't want to spend too much time talking about the key findings, but I think it's important that we recognize that these were the challenges that were identified by the community to help inform all of our partners to be able to serve them in a way that was authentic to the needs that they had. I want to talk specifically about Pacific Islander youth. San Mateo, here in San Mateo County, PCRC has been working with Pacific Islander youth in San Mateo County since 2004, of course, when I mentioned earlier about gang violence. And unfortunately, you know, we were able to dissolve our Tongan Interfaith Collaborative because it did what it was supposed to do. And when I was hired, the program had already been in 4 years, and 2 years after I was hired to manage the Tongan Interfaith Collaborative, we basically saw almost close to no violence among Pacific Islander youth. And because of some of the things that you saw in the previous slide that we've done with Pacific Islanders, there was an increase of high school to college enrollment, specifically at the College of San Mateo, because that is who we partnered with to host our Pacific Islander youth conferences. They saw a 76% increase in Pacific Islander youth enrollment in the 3 to 4 years that we were hosting that conference. So much so that they needed to create their own learning center. Some of you may be familiar with Puente or Emoja, which are focused on the Latino and African-American Black communities who are young people going into college or higher education. And so they created one for Pacific Islanders because there was such an overwhelming amount of young people enrolling at College of San Mateo. What we've seen in the last 2.5 years is that we know that violence and gang violence doesn't just go away. But what we try to do is we try to get in front of it. We try to encourage young people to get a job, to go to higher education, to get involved in their church, get involved with their local community. So we have tried and exhausted all of those options. And when funders see that you're doing a great job, they tend to decrease the funding that they give you. And so I don't have to preach that gospel tonight, but what's really important to know is that there was an increase in youth gang violence and crime. And we've seen a lot of it, especially in the last year during COVID. We are also seeing with the young people that we're working with. We currently work with young people in San Mateo from the 3 high schools, Aragon, San Mateo, and Hillsdale. We run a group called Youth for Change that is specifically just for Pacific Islander students. And there has been an increase in mental health challenges. Some of them are not able to articulate what they need when it comes to those challenges. And because of our partnerships that we have in the county, we're able to identify that some of these young people are really suffering from depression, and they're growing angry and frustrated for whatever reason, and there's no coping skills. There's also have been reports of young people who have wanted to end their life and have needed faith leaders to come in, as well as community leaders to come in and sort of help the families access some of the services that they need. Pacific Islanders, as you noticed in the report that I gave around key findings, not only are they the highest in uninsured, but they do not access even if they have insurance. What's a fact about Pacific Islanders is that we really have this idea that if I'm sick, it's because I'm supposed to be sick, and this may be the end of my life, and so I don't need to go to the hospital. I'm okay with, whatever sickness I have. And that's an issue, especially for young people, because they start to adopt some of those thoughts around just, being okay with how you are, and that prevention or intervention or trying to empower you to advocate for what you need is not necessarily. And so we start to see some of the negative impacts because of that attitude. We've also seen a decrease in high school graduation and college enrollment. That started to happen in 2019. We saw it in 2020, and we see it again in 2021. And that could be for a myriad of reasons. We're not sure. We haven't done a survey, but from our community leaders and the different coalitions that PCRC is a part of, these are all of the things that our community partners are asking for support in. And how can we continue to encourage young people to go to college? How can we remove barriers to get them to even enroll? Or once they enroll, they don't actually complete enrollment, and then they don't go to school. I think COVID-19, with the backdrop of a global pandemic, it just exacerbated everything that young people were already going through in the Pacific Islander community. Pacific Islanders had a high rate of COVID related deaths in the entire nation. And so for a very, very small community, we had a very high rate of COVID related deaths. And if you're familiar with Pacific Islanders, everyone's kind of related to everyone. And I know we joke about it, but it's kind of true. And so when you have multiple deaths already, that's already overwhelming for young people. But when it's COVID related plus just the normal sort of death rates that we see among Pacific Islanders, it's very challenging for young people to process that. Because of COVID, we saw a lot of housing and financial challenges, high rates of disengaged students, which meant a lot of them were either not passing or they were getting transferred to continuation school. I know I've been on a bunch of those calls. Because there were no athletics, our young people who really see a benefit in participating in athletics weren't able to play for 2 seasons. That also impacted the young Pacific Islanders who were graduating, who were expecting to either get seen by a scout or be able to walk onto a team, but they don't have video for the last 2 years. So there's been a lot of challenges there. And if you don't come from a family or go to a school that really provides that type of support, kids of color always suffer in that. The lack of community gatherings. As I mentioned, we are a community of collective. We want to do everything together. We go to the store just to go to the store and grab something, and there's about 3 or 4 of us just getting one thing. And I joke, but I'm kind of serious. And that's really challenging for young people who really love their culture and want to participate in the different events and things that happen in their community. And because of social distancing and restrictions, there was a decrease in community gatherings. And that really impacted the young people. And because we are PCRC, we did see an increase in parent and child conflict. And we saw that across the board in all communities, but this was something that was new for Pacific Islanders that actually were reaching out to us to access our services. Parents were at home, of course, helping their children with school, and it became very challenging and relationships shifted a little bit. So that's a little bit about what we are sensing and hearing from our partners and our young people that we work with. These are just some of the things that are happening. And I know that this really comes from a negative standpoint. I really want to talk about strengths as well, but they are resilient. Our community is very resilient and our young people are trying to figure it out. but they do need to know that there are people in their corner and that there are allies in the community with services that are important. And finally, our approach to community engagement is really around cultural humility. We don't assume we know everything. I'm Tongan, but I definitely don't think I'm competent in my own culture. And so I never assume so. And so cultural humility is a really important principle that we utilize in order to work with the Pacific Islander community. We also want to empower community culture. We really do believe that communities have the solutions to their own issues. Now, how do we get to that point? It really is important that we have dialogue and that they're involved in decision-making processes. There are a lot of people who make decisions around the Pacific Islander community that either one, are not from the community, or know anything about it. And so it's really important that we support these decision makers around learning more about the Pacific Islander community. We don't prescribe, something PCRC does not do. We don't prescribe, we subscribe, if you will. We really want to learn more about the community, and we really believe in building those relationships of trust. PCRC would not be the organization that the county looks to around Pacific Islander needs if we didn't build these relationships of trust. Also, we have staff that reflect the community, which is really important. Volunteers that also reflect the community. We're able to facilitate in language, which is really, really important to see the needle move a little bit in the positive direction. Community leadership and development. It's really around helping communities amplify their own voice. We help give them a microphone, and we help them feel comfortable around standing in front of a commission or in front of city council members, or how to articulate what they need. It's not that they don't know how, we just help sharpen some of the tools that they already have. Important for community is storytelling. That is something that's very cultural and important. And as I mentioned before, we don't have a lot of data, but we have a lot of narrative. And we want to be the ones that tell our own story. And so storytelling is a very important thing for the Pacific Islander community. And last, we really want to help them build social capital. Pacific Islanders are over-surveyed, over-focus group, over-asked to participate in very important initiatives, except because we're such a small community, our needs never really make it to the top. And so we want to help build the social capital and not continue to take from the community, but really build them through leadership, through access, and through partnership to really help address what the community needs. So I know I've been talking a lot and I've been talking quickly, and I apologize. I know I didn't have a lot of time, but I wanted just to give a very short snapshot of the Pacific Islander community that we work with a focus and highlight on our youth. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Hi, Melissa. I'm going to go first. We really want to talk to you in more depth. The Pure Court team, we're trying to create a diversion program for San Mateo County that would keep youth out of formal processing. Can you put your contact information for us in the chat?
Absolutely.
Okay. The second question is just where are the Pacific Islander communities sort of located in San Mateo County?
Sure. So currently, East Palo Alto has the highest population of Pacific Islanders in the entire San Mateo County. And then the next would be San Mateo, then Redwood City, then San Bruno, and then South City and Daly City.
Thank you so much. This was really wonderful.
Thank you.
I see Johanna's hand up next.
Thank you for your presentation. I grew up in San Bruno and my niece is Samoan, so I really appreciate this this presentation. I had a question about the members or the employees that work with you. Do you have many Polynesian members who have lived experience that help out with the program?
That is a great question, and the answer is yes. So currently we have 4 Pacific Islanders on staff, and we have about a pool of 27 Pacific Islander volunteers, and they help in many different capacities. They're mediators, they help to facilitate, they help us with outreach, planning, implementation. So, I mean, that's really sort of our formula, is that we don't want to just empower, but you know what, I really am uncomfortable word empower, because I feel like I have power that I'm giving to someone else. We encourage and we help to support the Pacific Islander community through leadership, through access. You know, some of them have never stood in front of a city council to talk about their water bill, and they suffer for years and years because they don't know how to advocate. So sometimes we handhold them. We literally take them and, you know, we help them create what they're gonna say. So yeah, it's really important that we continue to do that.
Let's see, Paul, I see your hand up next.
Hi, Melissa. Nice to see you again. I've
Hi,
seen you in a
Paul.
bit. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, have you heard of the Anamatangi Polynesian Voices, Mama D?
I absolutely have, yes.
Yeah, so I work very closely with them. You know, we help hold rallies. We donate clothes, food to people paroling from the county jail. So I just wanted to ask if you work with them, because I recently brought a brother, Christopher, who was Tongan, on parole, federal parole here.
Nice.
I wanted to bring a Polynesian voice to the commission with lived experience, who was currently being impacted by the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
And so I believe that there's a need, a bigger need for Polynesian voices here, even on the commission. And so I wanted to ask if you work with Anamatangi Polynesian Voices, because they're doing awesome work in EPA and right here in North Fair Oaks.
Yeah, we haven't partnered with Anamatangi outside of the COVID-19 outreach and testing and vaccination sites. But I'm real close to Mama D. She's a mentor of mine, and I definitely support anybody who's trying to help uplift the profile and the needs of the Pacific Islander community. Tiffany, that's my girl. So yeah, I mean, we try our best to work with everybody. There's only a really small handful of us Pacific Islanders doing the Pacific Islander work. And so we have to stick together because there's not a lot of us.
Yes, we definitely have to stick together. I look forward to seeing you in the field then.
For sure, thank you.
Melissa, this has been wonderful. You've done a fabulous job of enlightening us on the community, their needs, and the wonderful community work that PCRC is doing. So we appreciate that. And I know people will want to get copies of your presentation. So if you will send it to me, I'll make sure it gets out.
Yep, I will send you the slide. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions offline, or if anybody wants to partner with us, I'm absolutely open to that. So thank you again to all of you for the opportunity just to share a little bit about us.
We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and in the chat, Melissa left her contact information so anybody can get a hold of her. All right, well, we're moving along here. We'll go back to our updates and we'll turn to Ron Ray's Private Defender Program.
Sure. One additional update to whatever the judge had already provided. Starting July 1st, there's a new law that's going to be going in effect regarding sex registration as for individuals who were adjudicated out of as juveniles, and they were sent to DJJ as a result of sex adjudication. They were up until now required to register for life. In light of the new law, they would fall into two tiers, either 5-year period or a 10-year period, depending on the nature of the offense. But we will be, as a program, will be offering services to help and assist individuals who are impacted by the new law to file petition for relief from the registration requirement. We are working on putting out flyers in different organizations and different places to put the word out regarding that service, and that will, of course, be at no cost to the petitioners. And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Ron. Let's move on to BHRS. Aurora, you're on.
Hello, everyone. Similarly, no major updates. We continue to have a hybrid schedule with staff meeting with clients there in the juvenile hall in person, and also still providing services by telephone or video, and just moving along as the guidelines, CDC guidelines change. But because we do fall under the health department, we fall under the Cal OSHA guidelines. So even though things may be opening up, because we fall under the health Cal OSHA, we need to still follow their guidelines. And so until we get further instructions as things continue to open up. But again, we are encouraging clients to, for those that need to and would like to still meet in person in the community. And then definitely the clinicians are meeting with the clients and, you know, as often as they can in person there in the juvenile hall. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, do we have Janae Luttrell with us today? I didn't see her. No, I guess not. So we have no County Office of Education report out today. Let's move on to probation. Melanie and Jehan, would you bring us up to date?
Thank you. Yes, I'll go ahead and go first. So we are back in the office, all of the probation officers. And as of July 1st, we will no longer have telework for our supervision officers. We will only, we'll continue to allow the telework for our court services officers. We're starting to see more families come into the office, which is nice. And the POs continue to work closely with the youth and families. In terms of numbers, we have 180 clients on supervised probation, 77 youth that are being worked worked with in the assessment center and investigations unit. So that's our intake unit and where we do the court report writing, making recommendations to the court. So those youth are not on probation yet. We have 17 youth on EMP, 1 youth in placement, and by June 30th, tomorrow, he's returning back to the community in THPP. So we will no longer have any youth in out-of-home placement, which is the first time I've ever seen in my career. We have 9 AB12 youth, so those are our extended foster care youth. Our 5 youth that we still have at DJJ. And we have 4 youth who are on informal contracts through the assessment center and investigations unit. And I anticipate that that number will rise over time as we continue to assess and divert youth from going through the court process. And we currently have 21 DPOs. So any questions? More than happy to answer any questions.
Melanie, the 180 clients on supervision, that seems lower than it's been in a while. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, we continue to see that the numbers are trending down. I think, let me see, last month it was 189.
Oh, it was not that different. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Melanie?
I had a question. Do you know the racial makeup of those who are on supervision right now?
So the 180 youth that are on supervised probation, most of them are informal cases. I know Tony had asked previously if I could break down informal from formal, and I would have to do that manually. And so what I can say is that the majority of clients are on general supervision. So I would say maybe about a third or a quarter of the youth are in intensive supervision.
I was excuse me if I misspoke. I was thinking of the racial makeup of those that are mostly on supervision here. What is the majority?
So we have, you're speaking to race, ethnicity, yeah. So roughly,
yes, thank you.
Yeah, 63% of the youth are Hispanic Latino. And 13% are Caucasian. And then every other race or ethnicity is 7% and below.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I just want to publicly thank Melanie and also Jehan for being such generous hosts of commissioners over the last few months and making their facilities and their work accessible to us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and I'm going to log off now. So have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Melanie.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hi, Melanie. So for institutions, we currently have 15 youth in custody at the YSC Juvenile Hall and 5 at our girls camp. There's 19 male youth, or those identified as male, in the YSC and 1 female. As far as our services, nothing's really changed for us. We have been open. As far as our visits and programming, some of our programming still continues to be virtual, because kind of like what Aurora was saying earlier, some of the service providers still haven't come back in person, but we have had a few that are back in person and providing services. And that's pretty much it for us. You guys have any questions?
How you doing, Ms. Clark? Nice
Hi,
to
Paul.
see you again.
You too.
Yes. Yeah, I have a question. Do you have the racial numbers on those that are currently incarcerated in the YSC right now?
I don't have the numbers. I could get back to you
Yes.
on that, just for what the percentages are.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much and good to see you again.
You as well.
Keep doing that great work. I'm hearing about that room that you're painting in there.
Yes. So I will say that we are nearing completion of our de-escalation room. We're partnered with the Sheriff's Activity League. So the youth have been involved in doing a mural for that and kind of just really taking part in our de-escalation room. That's kind of like one of my prides and joys. So hopefully soon you guys will be invited to our grand opening kind of unveiling.
Some stimulation is better than none. Awesome work, though. I really applaud the effort that you're doing there. And however I can continue to support you, you got my support.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing the room.
Yes.
Great. Any other questions for probation? Okay, thanks, Jehan. John, you want to bring us up to date on Children and Family Services?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. Not a whole lot to report out today on the staffing front. I think I mentioned last time we've had some pretty long-standing vacancies over the past 15 months due to hiring freeze and what have you. So we are onboarding 11 new social workers as we speak, which is good news. In May, we did see a spike to our calls to our hotline, as well as those calls that require in-person response and investigation. We anticipated it as schools reopened in full force and kids are back in the classroom and more of our mandated reporters are out in the field with eyes and ears on kiddos. We anticipated the spike. So just about 10% off where we would normally be customarily around this time of year, which is our highest month, May into the beginning of June, just before school gets out. Over the summertime, we're going to see a dip in the action to our hotline, as we customarily do, but we anticipate come the fall we'll pick up where we left off in May once school reopens and kids are back in the classroom, assuming that kids are back in the classroom, in fact. Other numbers I could share with you. We have 182 youth currently in placement, in foster care placement, 7 of which, I know last time we talked briefly about STRTP level care. Currently 7 of our young people, of our child welfare dependents, 300 cases are currently in STRTP level of care. What else? We have been serving at full capacity out in the field in person since the beginning of this. We continue to do so, conducting all of our child safety related services in person, child abuse investigations, our case management services, our monthly visits with our youth dependents and their families have been face to face. We'll continue to do so. And then also, I just wanted to point you to a really good study that has come out. It's another iteration of Mark Courtney's Cal Youth study, and it looks at the impact of our extended foster care system in California, which came about under Assembly Bill 12, extending dependency, the option for dependency to young adults to age 21. I'm going to spare you of all the details during the meeting, but what I will do is I'll send the report to Tony so that you guys can take a look at that report if you wish. Some good outcomes as a result of, extending the time and care for these young people and having the extra support. That's all I have for today, but certainly open to any questions if you have any.
Hey, John, yeah, this is Victor. That's AB 412 that we're talking about?
AB 12.
Oh, yeah, right, not 412, sorry, AB 12. So they finally did a study on it, and you're saying there's positive outcomes, which, I mean, I would suspect just from obviously the statistics of like ending care at 18, it would seem like with more time we would have better statistics. So
yeah, what this study looks like and reports out on is each additional year in extended foster care, there's a related outcome for the positive. So for example, with each extended year in foster care, there's an increased probability that a youth will complete high school by about 8%. There is an increased expected probability of enrolling into college by 5 to 12%, and so on and so forth. So you guys can certainly review the report. I'm happy to speak on a little bit further at the next meeting if you wish. But it's a positive study and a positive look at the work that has been done in California since about 2012.
awesome, thank you.
Sure.
That's great. I'll get that study out to everybody before the next meeting then, John, if you send it. That's great.
I had a quick question. You said that we had 27 foster youth and STRC, I believe, or
just seven, not 20.
7.
And it's STRTP, short-term residential therapy program.
Okay, and are they currently in San Mateo County or outside of San Mateo County?
We have 4 in county, 3 out of county.
3 out of county. Do we have any foster care out of state that you're aware of, sir?
None.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Sure.
Okay, let's move on then to our project plan updates. I'd like to start with what we used to call the Truancy Project. I think, Susan, you've reframed, revamped, renamed. So we're now in the increased school attendance. So what I'd like to do is if you could take us through the project plan, and then let's take a vote to vote on approval of the project plan.
Yes, you have copies of the revised project plan. They're the last 4 pages in the agenda packet that was sent out. And if you've read it, you'll see that it is quite ambitious. And all the members of the committee have reviewed and approved it. We've made changes that they have asked for. And I think the main one is they wanted to get rid of the idea of truancy and frame it positively. What we want to do is to remove barriers to school attendance and help increase attendance in our schools so that we have more young people who are graduating high school. And the first task will be completed at our next committee meeting on July 16th. We've arranged for David Copperwood, the head of the California State SARB, to meet and brief us on the state requirements for SARBs and how model SARBs are formed. And I'm in the process of working on task 2. I'm updating my distribution list of members of the other JJCs and JJDPCs in other California counties. so I can find out what they're doing in terms of truancy reduction. And I'm also asked, whenever I talk to anybody that might be able to give us information on other projects, I'm asking for that. But we have a revised mission goal for the project to reduce structural barriers currently preventing students from attending schools, to work to create conditions that help students increase their attendance and address the needs of the full range of school-age youth with the goal of preventing disconnection from school. And then I have a brief description. Obviously, we've already started, our committee's been meeting since last year. And our current project plan goes through November of 2022, because there's a whole lot of work that we want to do, including a conference and a number of focus groups, which obviously are going to take time to put together, and we may have to try and raise some money to pay for it. So anyway, it is ambitious. I think if we can get some traction on it and execute, that we can go a long way toward increasing the number of students who stay in school. And you can see the list of my committee on the last page. So I move that the commission approve the increasing school attendance in San Mateo County project.
Is there any discussion around the project and questions for Susan? Or her
I just
team?
have a question clarifier. What is let me go back to the agenda item. It's number 6, dropout prevention specialist focus group. What is that?
Where's that?
It's item number 6. Hold focus group with dropout prevention specialists. I was just wondering who these people were and a little bit more about that.
The school districts, some of them, at least some of the school districts have people who are dropout prevention specialists.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Paul, I think your hand is always up, right? I mean, you don't have a question now? Okay. Okay, well, let's, we have a motion on the floor to approve this. So I'll go through we'll do a voice check. So let's see. Melissa.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Paul.
Yes.
Okay. Roxana,
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Victor,
Yes.
Sathvik,
Yes.
Johanna,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So the project is approved as an official JJDP project and unanimously approved. So good news, Susan, good work. And we'll be excited to get your updates over time. Okay, let's see, diversion programs.
Well, we're in the process of doing the interviews. We've completed interviews now, I think with Atherton. Well, I know with Atherton, Belmont, Colma, and I believe Hillsborough has been completed too. Willis did that one. A Redwood City interview is set for tomorrow. And we're still trying to set up with the other PDs. Of course, quite a few of them are covered by the Sheriff's Department. And I've talked to the Sheriff's office because I've been having trouble getting through to somebody there. And Sheriff Bolanis's admin is going to find out who I should be talking to, because that's kind of in flux. They were working with Manuel Velarde in Redwood City, and now Manuel has retired. So I'm not sure what the Sheriff's office plans are, so I need to find out. And when we talk with them, we're letting them know about the availability of the parents' handbook and about the peer court as well. And so far, everyone we've talked to has said that they would very much support the peer court once we can get it going. So I think that's positive. We're a little bit behind schedule. I had hoped we'd finish our interviews by now and be moving on to our next task, but I expect we will probably get them done by the end of July. Any questions?
Okay, excellent. Well, Paul, are you going to report on the next two items? Monroe sent a email with some detail on it, and
Right, he sent something that he wanted me to read.
Uh-huh.
So I'll just read it, and if there's any questions, then just feel free. Some of these meetings I did not attend. There's a couple here because they're being held during my work hours, so I couldn't make time from. But when Monroe gets back, he can definitely fill you in if you have any questions on some of the meetings, and I'll point them out if you have any questions on the ones that I didn't attend. So I'll just read what he sent. Communicating with elected officials. In June, Paul and I and Monroe met with Laura Lowen and Lizette Espinoza Garnica. Laura is the mayor of San Carlos and a candidate for Don Horsley's District 3 seat on the Board of Supervisors, which he must give up due to term limits in 2022. Lizette is a Democratic Socialist of America Party member who was elected to the Redwood City Council in district elections in 2020. Both conversations were excellent. And I did attend both of those. And yes, they were both very supportive of the commission's work. They support everything that we are working on and the aspirations. So we had a very successful meeting with both of them. And I was a part of those. In addition to those meetings, to introduce the commission and our strategy to elected officials, we also made multiple contacts with Lisa Gothier from East Palo Alto City Council and Michael Smith of the Redwood City City Council, and are working on setting up meetings with them. Also, James Coleman, council member from South San Francisco, reached out to introduce them to Pat Murray, a trustee on the South San Francisco Union School District. Finally, I and Monroe met with Carol Groom and Warren Slocum. So I wasn't a part of the Groom meeting, but I was a part of the Slocum meeting, which was very successful as well, to discuss the alternatives to institutional detention board resolutions. So those are very interesting conversations. I've had two of them with Mr. Slocum, and he's very supportive of reimagining how we see treatment for the youth. Alternatives to incarceration. Progress on passing a resolution to form a working group to determine alternatives to institutional prison-like aspects of the Youth Services Center stalled a little bit in June while supervisors were preoccupied with hearings for and passing the 2-year budget for the county. Nonetheless, we continued to see progress. That is definitely so. In the time since those budget hearings and since Chief Keen's budget presentation, in which he said the original draft resolution misses the mark, we met with supervisor not named Canepa, who wants to sponsor an alternative draft of the resolution, which would still achieve the same goal, and which we believe we can get enough support for to move forward. So that was like very successful, a very successful accomplishment on finding something similar to what we posed, but there will be some amendments just to ensure that we are all on the same page towards restorative practices here in San Mateo County. And he went on to say, we are expecting an update from the supervisor soon on the next steps, which would be supervisor not named Canepa for some reason. And then he went on to say, but did not hear any news before tonight's meeting. Due to the Brown Act restrictions, we cannot say anything more about behind the scenes discussions on who might sponsor and support the resolution at this time. But it's getting very exciting there, Commission. Any questions?
Good news.
Yes, very good news, very good news. We should all be very proud of ourselves.
Yeah, Paul, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea what those amendments are going to be right now? And when you guys do know them, will you report back to the commission what those amendments are?
Great question there, Victor. That was something that we were interested in as well. And as soon as we find out, because we really don't know what to expect, what's going to be feasible for them. And so we definitely would like to bring that to the commission to find out how we feel about that, because right now the supervisors are really interested in how this commission thinks, how we're operating, how we're moving, and what we feel right now is the best thing for these youth. So definitely report back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on then to the after school programs project. Karen, would you like to update us?
Thank you, Tony. I'd love to update you. So Tony and Amaya and I have been working on our after school programs project for some time. And I think we're getting close to finishing our research. We have so far conducted 15 interviews across city and county representatives, community-based organizations, and also meeting with advocacy groups through attending the Thrive Alliance Children in Education Peer Learning Series, which has been super helpful that we've been able to sit in on and participate in for the past few months. We're also waiting to hear, we've had some very fruitful discussions with the County of Office of Education. And coming out of that, we've been promised access to district reports on the district's plans for after school and summer programs going forward. So we're really anxious to see that, and we think that will help us formulate our final assessment of what is out there. And just to kind of, I guess, bring you back to what we were trying to accomplish, we were first aiming to catalog the available after-school weekend and summer programs by location with the services provided. Our next step was to analyze these offerings and understand whether there was enough funding to provide for suitable offerings in the 5 key areas which we identified as being underserved in San Mateo County. So once we are assessing that and the gaps in services, we plan to do a recommendation on a follow-up project to advocate for filling those gaps in services and addressing the barriers to full utilization. It's turned into quite a complex assessment. We have a lot of information, but we are planning to provide you with a report at the next meeting and a presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Karen. Any questions on that project? Okay, next one on the list is the dashboard, and I can report on that. We've decided, because it's been a little slower going than we expected in collecting data, we've decided to break the project into 2 pieces. So phase 1 will be the information we've been able to get from probation and BSCC. And from that data, we are created 9 different charts for the dashboard. Some will be population by gender and pre and post disposition. There'll be a couple charts on bookings by type, and it'll include weapons related bookings and probation violation bookings. And then finally, we'll have monthly data as reported by Jehan and Melanie that we'll have on our charts. So we're hoping that by July, we can have a mock-up dashboard that will include various charts and definitions for all the terms we're using. And let me mention that Aurora has done a fantastic job for us. He's doing all taking the raw data that we've collected and charting it out and making a landing page for us. So I think we'll have something really good to show you next month. Any questions on the dashboard project? Okay. Outreach to underserved youth. Johanna, are you reporting?
Yes, I just have a very brief update. So we are looking forward to now that California has opened up, we're looking forward to branching out and reaching into our communities to let people know that our commission exists and about the resources we offer. We're working to become part of the ongoing curriculum and programs like Redwood City's Parent Project. And we hope that with the launch of our social media program that we'll be able to really let people know about our commission and the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, let's move on to the peer court. And it sounds like we have a lot of new information here.
Austin, would you like to take the lead?
You take the lead, I'll fill in the gaps.
Oh, gee. Okay, well, I just assumed you were going to go. Peer court is just an exciting place to be right now. Austin and I and Angelina, a volunteer, just came from the Boys and Girls Club, who is going to be our home in East Palo Alto, and we believe San Mateo. So that's fantastic news. We've done a lot of outreach to people that Austin can detail if he wants, generally really supportive. And as we've gone through this process, we've come to realize that sort of the peer court piece of it, which is not quite the right name, but that's just the tip of the iceberg for all the other supports and pieces of the program that we're putting into place. We're going to work with the County Office of Education and have a meeting with all of their staff about student support staff. Austin?
So currently we're working with the supervisor's office, Supervisor Canepa's office. We're reaching out to the DA's office and police departments, as well as part of the Identifying Diversion Programs group. We're currently looking to create a youth leadership team. So I'm in the process of putting together that so we can reach out to school administrators from youth within that school. And then we're also reaching out to probation and working with the Office of Ed, as Melissa mentioned. And we're working to reach out to juvenile judges to cooperate with them as well on our program.
And we're applying for money.
We're applying for a bunch of grants right now as well. It's going really well.
Where are you applying?
We have a whole sheet. We can.
Oh, that's all right.
The Board of Supervisors is probably, the most significant assistance we could get. We are also accepting, checks if anybody here wants to donate to the effort.
Okay, thanks. Any questions?
Yeah, emphasize what Victor said in the chat.
Oops, what did Victor say in the chat?
We are applying like everywhere, LOL.
Excellent.
I have a question, Tony.
Yes, sorry, I missed you, Roxana.
It's okay. This is Roxana. So thank you, Melissa, for sharing that, and Austin as well. Can you please just share what is peer court, just for the audience and the public, please?
Yeah, so peer courts have been around for over a decade. There are many different forms of peer court, and we find that I was just a presenter at the last California Association of Youth Court Summit, and I stayed around to give a talk on my experience with peer courts. I've participated in now 5 peer courts across the state. Some of them follow in like an adversarial model, and some of them do not. And the program that we're modeling off of is Youth Transforming Justice, a nonprofit based out of Marin. And I can send you an entire training that we've held about how the process is run. But what it is it's based on a trauma-informed approach. And we're trying to focus on a holistic view of the individual who are referred to us by different people in the county instead of having a more punitive measure. And then this youth will come through our program and have a restorative plan. And they will help inform their own restorative plan that will be at the end of the process. So I'll share a whole recordings and presentations folder.
Got it. Thank you so much for just giving a little bit of that insight.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, it's ultimately a diversion program for youth in the county.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, the last project is the lessons learned from COVID.
Do you want to give the update, Melissa, or Safik, or
God,
do you want me to do it?
Johanna, you are more than able.
Okay, let me turn on my video. Okay, so we are wrapping up our project and we are very excited about the information that we have to share. We are hoping to present it to you at our meeting next month. And we are looking to use our time during our meeting effectively. And so that means that we will be using the vast majority of our 15 minutes to answer your questions. So please keep an eye out for when the report hits your inbox in your email, and think about the questions that you may want to ask during our next meeting in July. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Nope.
All right, that's it.
Great. Well, I think we'll have a busy meeting in July. We'll have the COVID project. We're hoping to have the after school done, and we'll look at some dashboard output too. So that should be a fun meeting for all of us. Okay, we have some time for a change for our commissioner report out, so you don't have to be racing through that. Let's see, Victor, you have your hand up.
It's so weird because I don't see my hand up on my tiles. I don't know what's going on. I'm glad you see it. It's a quick question for Joanna. I saw the stuff on the social media. Awesome. Can we share that on our personal pages so we are like letting people know that we're good to go? Like that's a green light, or hold off on that?
No, absolutely. We just received approval yesterday, so it's very fresh and very new, and that's why you all received the email today to just let you know that our accounts are up and running. So I was going to, I'll just use this space as an opportunity to share what I was going to share in a report out, that the JJDPC currently now has approved accounts for Instagram and Twitter, and our account names are JJDPC SMC on both Twitter and Instagram. And I was just given access, administrative access today for the San Mateo County YouTube channel, so I can upload our meetings and any additional content that we would like to see on our YouTube channel. So all of that is live, it's new. Our social media subcommittee is, I'm hoping that we'll be able to meet in July to, sort of vet out some of the granular details of the program, but please, by all means, share, retweet, like, and support our program. We're really hoping that this will go a long way in reaching our underserved communities and letting people know about the work that we do here on the commission.
Very exciting.
Johanna, I'm so impressed.
Well, thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that.
Victor, is your hand up again, or is that left over? Okay. Anything else on the marketing program? Johanna, we'll just go into your.
I did want to share that I've been doing a few mock-ups on our commission logos. And so that's something that our subcommittee will be discussing at our first kickoff meeting. And I'm hoping that we will be able to show you a few in an upcoming meeting that where you can share your opinions on what our logo should look like for our commission.
This is great. Thanks. Okay, let's move back up to the top of the list then. Youth Commission. Do we have a report out?
So actually we had our final meeting, I think last month, but some interesting news was Austin actually recently got elected as the chair of the Youth Commission. So I guess a massive congratulations to him.
Excellent. Congratulations, Austin.
Thank you. And now Safik and I are putting together next year's new commissioners. And we're interviewing people next week, or tomorrow, actually.
Do you have a lot of applicants?
We do.
Good. Okay.
Tony?
Yes.
I
Susan.
think it's worth noting they have 10 departing commissioners. 5 are headed for UC Berkeley, 1 each for Stanford, Brown University, and the University of Illinois and UCLA. So
wow.
It's an extraordinary group of young people, and I think we can be very proud of them.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. All right, Melissa, would you like to talk about membership?
Absolutely. I want to start just thanking the volunteers who are on this call. Armand, Amaya, Celia, Angelina, and Spencer are all young people who are putting in good work on the commission, and that's just wonderful. We had, Tony, Monroe, and I interviewed 3 candidates for our 1 open position, and we felt that the timing wasn't right to place somebody in that opening. And so we're going to revisit that. We think we have a few more applications coming on. And so probably in a couple months, we'll have more of a game plan there. If anybody is new here and interested in joining the commission, I'd like to stay on afterwards and just introduce myself and connect and answer your questions. That's it.
Thanks. How about the legislation team? Do you have a news for us?
I took a quick look at the bills that we were following that Ron had flagged for us as well, and it looks like maybe summer has something to do with it, or budget preoccupation has something to do with it, but not much is happening. The one bill that I noticed was AB 1127, which was the one that prohibits prior juvenile adjudication from being considered from considering a prior serious or violent felony conviction for the purposes of sentence enhancement. That one was ordered to the inactive file at the request of the Assembly member Santiago. So that seemed a little odd to me. I don't know, Paul, if you're familiar with why that would happen, but it looks like that one may have hit a bit of a wall. Everything else looks like it's proceeding. The 2 bills that Ron had identified as he thought were probably going to be successfully passed look like they're proceeding. The one, AB 624, juveniles being transferred to the Court of Criminal Jurisdiction. It has been referred to the Committee on Public Safety, so that I guess is good. AB 503, in the award of a court, that probation be limited to 6-month increments, and offering work programs in lieu of restitution being removed. That has been read for the 2nd time in Senate and is being re-referred to the Committee on Public Safety. So I think everything is just proceeding along in its appropriate fashion, except for that one bill. And the Promise Act is still in committee. This was the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act that is being improved. So it's been held in committee and is still under submission. Nothing too exciting.
Okay.
Paul, do you have anything to add?
Okay.
No, that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Tony, if I might add that Roxana and Victor have had their hands up on prior comments and we missed that. Can we call on them?
Oh, I'm sorry. Roxana, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I did have a comment. Thank you, Johanna, and thank you, Tony. I did have a question on, let's see, what was it? I guess the outreach to underserved youth and families. I'm just curious to know how are we going to be measuring that? You know, just what are we trying to accomplish? I think that I just need more clarification on that.
So I think what we're looking to accomplish is just to let residents know that our commission exists. I was very surprised to learn that there's not a lot of recognition about our commission throughout the county. So our goal is to let people know who we are, what we do, what our work is, and how we are going to measure that. I mean, there's certain measurements I can use, analytics I can use online for social media, but basically we're hoping that increased communication and increased attendance at meetings will be a gauge on how we're reaching families. If you have any ideas on what might, measurements that we should use, please share them with me, because this is new for me. And so I welcome the opportunity to learn more about this.
Got it. Thank you. That's all I had. Not sure if Victor has a question. His hand's still up.
No, sorry, I don't know how to, it's not showing up on my tile. And I don't see a lower hand. So just ignore my hand for now. I apologize. I'm trying to figure it
Right
out.
where you had raised hand, now you can lower hand by clicking on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's weird because,
I think you have to click on reactions first and then lower hand.
right, no, that's normally where it is, but this version of Zoom I have is an older one, and it's in the participants, and I see where it says raise hand, but I don't see where it says lower. So just ignore my hand for now. If I need you guys, I'll wave.
I think you're muted, Tony.
Thank you. I was asking Johanna, as police liaison, do you have anything to report to the group?
I do have some exciting things to report. So my goal is I've been working to recruit a law enforcement representative for North, Central, and Southern County. So we would have a law enforcement representative to attend our monthly meetings and to collaborate with us on our work going forward. So far, I've identified a representative from the South San Francisco Police Department. His name is Ken Chakudi. He's a lieutenant. Many of you may know of Ken's uncle, who lost his life in the line of duty from the Millbrae Police Department. I know Ken because his son and my daughter have gone to school together for 9 years. So we're awaiting approval from the South San Francisco Police Chief on whether or not Ken can be our North County representative. And we are still recruiting for Central and South County. So if anyone has any suggestions, I have a few people in mind, but if you have any suggestions, either by department or by name, please let me know. I'm looking forward to filling those positions and having them join us on a more ongoing basis. Thank you.
Great. Okay, we're moving right along. Do any of you who are serving as, let's see, okay, Kate, I see you have a question. Trying to get a little better at seeing these hands up.
I think Susan actually had me beat, so I'm going to defer to Susan first.
Okay.
No, I was going to report, so if Kate has a question, she should go first.
Thanks. So the one piece, I can turn my video on. The one piece I might recommend as far as representation on this body is to consider what the representation is on the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Commission, the JJCC, so that there's not duplication. So for example, like the chief, the Redwood City Police Chief is on the JJCC. So it might be worth, for example, like the East Palo Alto Police Department, to include them as a way of kind of diversifying the voices. So just wanted to kind of note that there is some overlap and that might be a way, just a way of kind of prioritizing folks. But just a thought.
Thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciate that. So just to give you an idea, what I'm looking at is the captain from Hillsborough, because when he graduated college, he actually worked at the California Youth Authority for like 5 years. So he worked at the intake facility in Stockton. So I think he would be a really good candidate to fill this position, because as we're doing the realignment, he has a really good understanding of how intake was done at the Youth Authority. And then I was looking at a potential sergeant from the Sheriff's Department who worked with the CARE-ON program, because so many of our youth are on the coast and in unincorporated San Mateo County. So that's kind of what I had in mind. But again, if anybody has any suggestions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, Susan.
Okay, I had a Child Abuse Prevention Council meeting this month, and we had a presentation on the California Youth Connection by their new executive director, Janae Eustace, who used to coordinate the CAPC. And this organization is for foster youth, either current or former foster youth. And there are 33 county chapters. The San Mateo County chapter is funded by Child Welfare, and it's a national network. So I'm going to put the connection in the chat. So if anybody's interested in checking out their website, it's there. Also, I think Austin should report on his 15th annual Youth Court Summit, June 24th to 26th. I attended it and I was impressed to see that we had attendance from all over California, from many other states, and even 2 people from Trinidad and Tobago. And Austin was part of the planning, and he did several of the presentations, and it went off beautifully. So putting on a 3-day conference is a pretty heavy duty job, and I think it was excellent. So kudos to Austin and his committees.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, it went really well. So it was an entirely youth-led summit, and it was the first one that we've ever had online. And so it was the first one we've ever had that was youth-led, and the first one that we've ever had that was online, and it went really well. We had SF's DA Chesa Boudin come and speak on one of the days. We had Secretary of State Shirley Weber speak on another day, and we had the CEO of Global Youth Justice come speak on the last day, Scott Peterson. So we had a bunch of great speakers and we learned a lot. I think one focus that I love to see this year was trauma-informed approach. We had multiple workshops on that and how that relates to restorative justice programs. And I thought that that was a great change from what we saw last year in the summit. So just wanted to share that.
Thanks. Any other community ambassadors who would like to bring us up to date? Okay. I want to mention that I went to the Chelsea Bonini leads the Commission on Disabilities, the youth section, and I went to their meeting last week and found it very interesting. Chelsea, do you want to take a second to let people know what you're working on with the trend towards independence meetings?
Sure. Thank you, Tony. I'll just take a couple secs. So I, as the Youth and Family Committee for the Commission on Disabilities, we each year, just as you all have for your commission, we have a bunch of different committees and we have annual project plans. So this year, one of our main goals is to partner with the existing team that does what is the Transition to Independence Fair. And we're looking a lot at expanding what they normally do in terms of their one-day event. And it was a couple of days virtually this past year. And we're exploring a lot of the work opportunities and just every aspect you can think of how students with disabilities from ages about 14 through 22, all the resources they would need and how we could deliver those in a more expanded way and a more accessible way throughout the county. So it was great to have Tony join us, and we're in the brainstorming session right now to think about how we will expand that, and then we'll be pushing out information and planning events and things around that. So that's about it. And thank you so much, Tony.
Thanks for reporting on that. Are there other areas that people would like to bring the commission up to date on?
I could share that I went to the meeting today on DJJ planning for education and vocational opportunities. And I think that the school part is in good stead. I think that providing vocational education services probably is going to have to be more extensive than currently envisioned because youth are in detention so much longer than they currently are.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Armand, I see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I was able to attend the mental health Services meeting this month, and a significant portion of that meeting was discussing the Mental Health Services Act. So they have a 10 million proposed budget increase that the commission seemed fairly confident that at least a significant portion of it would be passed. And in this increase, it stipulates a $250,000 increase to the Health Ambassador Program for youth, 1 million to the Primary Care Interface, 85,000 to alcohol and other drug youth residentials, and 500,000 to school-based mental health clinicians. So I feel like all of these increases in funding could have a beneficial effect towards youth and the juvenile justice.
Good news. Thank you. Susan.
As yesterday, I went to the JJCC Clinical Services Working Group, and they're looking at services to be provided to youth in the new SOAR program for the youth that are coming back from DJJ. And the different agencies were talking about what they were going to do for the youth. And it sounded like they didn't know what was happening with the youth who are there now, but happily, Judge Shakobowski said that they get regular reports on what's happening with those youth. And Ron Reyes said that the lawyers for those youth are in regular contact with them to make sure that things are going well for them there. So that was of interest to me, because at first it sounded like nobody knew what was happening with them. And it turns out that's not so.
Good. Okay, well, I think we have had a good, productive meeting in record time, no less. So I appreciate everybody's participation. If one last chance for any other comments, otherwise we will adjourn and thank you. See you next time.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. I got that in the message.
Melissa, you have your hand up.
You're welcome. I provided the stats on the breakdown by race and ethnicity for the youth that are in custody.
Yes, it's in the chat box. Great job. Thank you.
Jehan, is that information easy enough for you to get on a monthly basis?
Yes, yes. I have already put the word out to our analysts to give me that information.
Great, so we can look at that every month?
Yes.
Oh, fabulous. That is terrific. Our dashboard just added a new chart.
Yes, thank you. Good job.
Welcome.
Does anybody want to talk to me after the meeting who's a prospective commissioner?
I mean, I wouldn't mind talking to you, but I'm not a prospective.
Victor, you're invited.
Same. I mean, we had a brief conversation, but I'm down to continue it.
Okay, great. If somebody wants to transfer ownership to me, I'll take that on.
I'll be happy to do that. And please remember to follow us on Twitter and look for us on Instagram. And we'll be uploading our videos tomorrow on YouTube. So stay tuned.
We are so hip.
I'm about to blast it all on my page, Joanna.
Thank you so much. All right. Good night, everybody.